All right. Jana, do you want to explain your song?
So the first couple songs I did were very acoustic and kind of symphonic based, piano and strings. And I'm trying to break away from that a little bit. I'm trying to modernize my songs without completely getting rid of the highly melodic and somewhat symphonic elements. So that's kind of where the structure of Apart came from. My song called Apart. And a lot of my songs have to do with like broken relationships and heartbreak and moving on and how you move on. So that's the basic, in a nutshell, concept of my song.
It's been a long time coming. Why did we wait this long? Lately I feel like running till my legs give out. We thought that we were perfect, couldn't have been more wrong. I'm struggling to find something to make sense of it all. Will you hide me somewhere I can breathe again? Will you find me when we can be friends? It didn't work out together. I can't think about forever, just one day at a time, and maybe we'll be fine apart. We were in such a hurry to reach forevermore. Didn't have time to worry what we both stood for. And now we've reached the end game. Neither of us have won. It's just a big game over things we couldn't overcome. Will you face me or keep me in the dark? Will you hate me for breaking your heart? It didn't work out together. I can't think about forever, just one day at a time, and maybe we'll be fine apart. I know it feels like both our worlds are split in two, but I can't be myself when I'm with you. It didn't work out together. Did we wait this long? Can't think about forever until my legs give out. We can't ever be together.
Well, I'll just jump in with my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Yeah. This feels different to me than your other songs. So if you're trying to do different, like it's working, it still feels like you and it still feels authentic. But the song elements are a little bit different. And you did some like poppier things, I think, with your vocals, like the way you recorded the vocals and the actual melody and phrasing.
Yes. I think like the repeat words are something that I wouldn't have done before.
That's like the magic part of the song is in the verses when you do the phrase repeat. Like that was my favorite part. Every time I listened to it, I was waiting for that to come around in each verse. This one, I don't really have any. I don't have any like musical criticism of this song. Like, you do a really good job of separating your parts and creating like a whole overarching flow where the verse has the verse is like centered around one like harmonic point, and then the pre-chorus goes to a different place. Like, I think your B section goes to like the 2 minor. It's like a 2/5, and then like your chorus goes to a different place and all that kind of stuff. The one thing that I would say, if you wanted to pare it down a little bit, because I think it's like 4 minutes and 45 seconds.
It is long.
I don't think you have to get rid of any of the parts, but the way that, like we were talking about with Brett's, it's just like rearranging them. I think you might be able to get away with it because your B section, like Brett's, also kind of sounds like a false chorus to me when I listen to it. When you go to the 2 chord, that part to me can stand alone, I think, and almost act like you do the verse and then you do that section. And I think you could get away with going right back to the verse.
Okay, so leave out the first chorus.
I would try it that way. It might work. It might not. But like, if we're calling them A, B instead of verse chorus, there's like the A section, B section. I think you could go back to the A and B again before you hit the chorus.
Okay.
And then there's not another verse, right? Is there 2 verses?
There's so there's verse. The verse is kind of like 2 short verses.
Right.
So there's like verses, B section, right now chorus. Then there's verses, B section, chorus, then B, and then final chorus with like the A sections. Yeah,
with the verses in it. Okay. Yeah. You do this a lot, and I think it's very, not like traditional, but you have complex and like fully developed sections, which is great. But when you start stacking them, they make for long songs. And so because your verse is like a double verse, and then you have a chorus that's almost like a double chorus, because you have the first half of it, and then it has like a refrain line at the end. So it's got like a chorus that you repeat up front, and then even an extra tag. Yeah. So there's like this section, there's a lot of sections, and then the sections themselves are kind of long. So I would almost do the same thing with Brett's. You could do A, B, C, and then
instrumental,
and then go back to the C.
Okay.
And you can, if you want, you do the instrumental B section, right? Are you on the 2 chord, or do you do something else?
It actually goes back to, the instrumental goes back to A.
Okay.
So there's the instrumental section in A, then there's like the ba-dum bum bum ba-da-da-da-da-da, and then and then the final C. Okay.
And there's something you can try. If you resolve the first chorus apart on like the 6th chord, what key is it in?
C, actually.
Okay, so if you resolve it on A minor, it might be interesting to come up with a different, unique instrumental break chord progression. Because I think you have the repeating progression like in the middle and then at the end. Yes. That kind of is to set the mood. I don't know if you necessarily need it though, because your verses are so vibey, they set the mood by themselves without the instrumental section.
Do you
But
think
if you-
the instrumental could be shorter, should be shorter, like half as long as it is?
Are you talking about I think if you made it, I think it could be like almost like a middle eight, like a short, compact instrumental that does something different and takes you somewhere else before you go back to the B section.
Okay.
And then you get a little bit more bang for your buck for the instrumental break, and it's not like something we've heard already. And then I think you can come back to the chords that you're using for the current instrumental break
At the end.
Yeah,
Right. Okay.
because it's just
Okay.
the verse chords, right? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's the very end is like C. It repeats like 4 or 5 times,
Yeah.
and then it's the A like structure to end it out.
Right.
So the instrumental, I'm thinking just to reduce it, we could go from like the 16 bars that it is to 8,
Yeah.
and have a totally different structure.
Yeah. Yeah, just something. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It should be like a couple of chords just to take it to a different. I would instinctively I would try going to the minor, like going to A minor, because your verses start on C, and then you go to D minor for the B section. What does the chorus start on?
It's F, but because it goes to a B natural before it drops to the A, it kind of sounds different, but it's F.
Okay.
And then it goes to A, F, then C. So
So you kind of hit all the major tonic points, like all the major harmonic points of emphasis in the key, except for the minor. So that's why I'm suggesting trying it. It might not work. You might just be able to go somewhere else, but that's the only place where you haven't really kind of
it's funny because I
put a
was
mark on the map.
toying with the idea of doing something with E minor, which
Yeah,
I also haven't done. So yeah, I'll mess with those, either A
I
minor
love
or E
three
minor.
minors. Like Gabby does it in her song as part of the progression, and I think they're underutilized for sure.
Yeah.
Let me. I had some notes. Let me see. I think that might have been it. Oh, for the apart, you kind of go up with your melody right at the end.
I do.
I would just sing the root twice, like apart,
Okay.
like C, and hammer it because you're either resolving on the C or you're resolving on the A minor, and the dissonance between like the melancholy stuff that you're singing about, and then doing like a kind of like a perfect resolution on the tonic, like on the root of the scale, it kind of does a cool bittersweet thing where it's like a super happy sounding melody part, but it's kind of working against and rubbing with what you're singing about.
So the first chorus I land on the C, the second chorus I actually do the E. So I could either take the first chorus out altogether, but both of them you just end on C, is what you're saying, right? Both times
Just saying the melody part, not the actual chord. Like your melody note, I think you kind of like you do your little setup line, and then you go up with the melody, like the words apart go up.
Right. So
I would resolve them low.
So apart instead of apart, right?
I would just even do it like two of the same, like apart on C. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Cool.
I want to ask Holden one thing about Jana's stuff. You did mention it initially, but I just want to see if you can elaborate. Like you said, this song sounds kind of different from her other stuff, but it still sounds like her. Like I think all of us have been trying to maybe like push Jana to be doing some more like maybe pop things or like indie pop things, but we don't want her to lose her identity. Was that like a legit compliment or comment, or should we not be doing that? Should we just be letting her be her and not trying to push in any direction? That's my French bulldog making all these noises. I want to mute it.
What do you want, Jana? Like,
I want to be more relevant. I feel like some of my stuff does sound kind of old. Like I'm okay. I have kind of these two different things going on. One is this like very ultra melodic thing that I would like to get more, not to be like super cliche, but the Taylor Swift Folklore album still has these like modernized pop elements that people can connect to and they're relevant. So that's this one. Then I have this kind of like jazzy, almost like vaudeville thing. So that's a whole different set of songs. That one I'm way more like tuned into. This one I'm still trying to develop like a flavor, and I the closest thing I can relate to it is like the Taylor Swift Folklore, where I'm just trying to get a little bit more like relevant, I guess, without getting away from the melodic and kind of symphonic bass line that I've been trained in. So
well, then at that point I would just say then, yeah, I would feel absolutely free to push Jana in different directions that you guys think are more popular, more accessible, or directions that she wants to go.
Mm-hmm. She's also a fan of Lana Del Rey's like Atmospheres, but maybe not. Yeah, like we're not trying to make anyone like. Ultimately, we're trying to develop strong identities for everyone, right? So it's like we don't want Jana to be like Taylor Swift but different, or Lana Del Rey but different. But we're trying to take elements of their songwriting and production that kind of speaks to her and try to figure out ways to incorporate them. Something that Jana gets hung up on a lot and struggles with is rhythmic, like what to do rhythmic wise, like what the drum pattern should be, what the drum feel should be. And some of the conversations we have, she'll pick songs that she likes, but to me, the rhythmic feel of whatever song she's vibing on is sometimes ends up being like fundamentally different than her song. And then what I struggle with is getting past this almost kind of like grafted on feel that I end up with, because it doesn't feel like Jana's song informed the rhythmic choices. It feels like another song with kind of totally different drives and just content in general is informing Jana's song, and that creates like this dissonance for me. So do you have any suggestions on either rhythmic feels and I know like, we probably should have sent you some questions before this, but or any advice on how you maybe pick your rhythmic feels?
I can totally relate to what you're going through with this. And the best thing that I could say to it is you're just in a transition right now, because I went through the same thing when I was writing I didn't like flesh out and add arrangements to any of my music pre 2014, 2015. Like it was all acoustic vocals, some auxiliary acoustic instruments or pads or whatever, and like different things. But to go from being one thing and to try and reframe it as another, and it's not, you're like, I like this stuff, I like this stuff, how do I bridge the two?
Right.
And sometimes it's about, like, there are multiple parts of the process. Sometimes it's like, I can take my old songs and try them in different feels and see if they work. Sometimes they just don't work. Sometimes they do. And you can't force it. Like, if you wrote this song at this tempo and that's just the way it feels, then sometimes you just got to let it be that. And the other thing that I would say is, like, if you like a song that has a certain feel to it, or if there's a song off Folklore that you really like, take the tempo and write something in that style. Because eventually you're going to get to the point where you're writing for whatever it is the voice you settle on. Like, that's going to be the style that you're going to write songs to, and it's going to be different than the way you used to write songs.
Right. Yeah,
so it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of trying to find what works with the stuff that I've already written, what can I bring with me into this new place, or what can kind of be a bridge to the new place, And then how do I start bringing these elements actively into the new songs that I'm writing? Because it is really hard to take something that's already been written and be like, all right, I want to take this straight up feel. And it's not like something like, oh, I love this tambourine accent, I'm going to bring this in the song. It's like, no, this straight up drum like pattern, tempo, feel, I'm trying to overlay the two. And sometimes they just don't fit. Mm-hmm. And that's how, and it takes time to figure out what you're trying to keep from here and what you're trying to keep from here. And then you end up at this place where it's like you in the middle.
That's
but
what
it's
you're
just kind
hearing.
of a painful process.
Yeah, that's what you're hearing with Apart. I wrote this song specifically to have a drum beat. And I don't know what it is, but I know that I want like a solid beat in there. My other songs were really like piano heavy, and that was like what Shane said, kind of carrying the weight of like all of my previous songs. That's like just the songwriting that I was used to is piano and vocals. So with Apart, I like instinctively left like almost all the piano out of it so that there's more room for other things to go in and for it to breathe more, and with percussion in mind, but I still am like not sure what that percussion is. Yeah.
This is super weird, and it was super weird for me, but like if you're used to always sitting down at a piano and fleshing something out, like try different styles of writing. Like I used to always sit down with an acoustic guitar and whatever and write while I was strumming and playing what I was doing. But you'll write different songs, and you will write, I guarantee you'll write more syncopated poppy melodies if you maybe come up with a chord progression, but then put the drum beat down and then loop it and like come up with your melodies on top of that, come up with your phrasing on top of that, because it's going to sound different than if you were sitting there playing at the piano. And if you're trying to bring in some of those pop elements, I think that's a good way to do it. Sometimes you just have to switch up the process.
Yeah.
So if I'm hearing you right, you're saying maybe start out with like a shell of chords or however, but mostly start out with some type of like drum loop that you're doing, that you're creating the vocal melody off of, and leave the chords be more of a shell instead of leaning heavily on piano as a performance, like as the main structure.
Right. I think that goes for like, if you're in a rut writing, just try a different thing. Like a lot of times I don't know if it's the same for piano, but for guitar players, a lot of our phrases start on one because we're strumming on one every time. Like, and so if you just take whatever guitar like progression you're working with and you record it and then you loop it and write on top of the guitar progression, it's going to be different because you're not trying to play and sing at the same time. You naturally will find the path of least resistance. So if you're playing your guitar and playing like a chord progression or chord changes, you're going to fit the vocals where they're probably the easiest place to fit. So if you remove your playing and singing limitations from that and kind of separate yourself, you'll probably write some stuff that's non-conventional for you, and it'll probably end up being a little bit more syncopated, and like that's pop. Like all pop is syncopated vocals.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to bring more of that into it, then that's for sure one way to do it.
Yeah. Apart was very like synth oriented. And just like you said, those whole note bass chords, I guarantee if I had started to write Apart with piano, those repeating like phrases that you like so much would not have even existed in that song.
Right.
So.
And something that's been difficult. So Jana's piano playing is really good, and she like what I really like about it is when she does a demo, it like fully supports the melody, almost in a like a progressive or kind of mathy way. Like it's very interlocked, right? But it also makes it incredibly difficult to
pull apart.
Come up with like rhythmic structures for it, because how I kind of identify it is piano is basically like a percussion instrument, even though it's harmonic too. And so this concept that I have is that it's like if you're just going to add drums over a really active piano, it's like the drums have to out rhythm the piano. They have to out drive it. Otherwise, it sounds weird. It sounds like, what's the point of these drums being in there? You know what I mean? And so then the trick is, okay, if we can make the piano part sparser, but still have elements of the mathiness, you know, like with the syncopations and things as like little flourishes, but it's like more sparse to begin with. To me, that sounds like an interesting place to start. But yeah, I think that's where stuff gets difficult because the piano part is so intricate and that's what she's doing in these new songs is trying to pull it out and like make it like, maybe she started out with something, more dense, and then she's removing it piece by piece. I think Brett's gone through different learning experiences like this with not with piano playing, but other aspects. And he calls it like burning it off or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that phrase I use more for like my identity kind of stuff, but it works for everything. You just kind of like, you do stuff and you demo it and you show it to the group. And then eventually the only thing that's left is like, what was the essence of it or what was important? And typically that's something that once you have that and you identify what the essence is, you can then build from there. You can put in a rhythm or something. But yeah, I think Jenna's going through a little different process, but ultimately we're going to get to the same point where we find what the essence of what her songs are. And then from there, I think the freedoms will open up more.
Cool.
I think sometimes we can rely on our instrumental abilities as a crutch too in songwriting. One thing that I do a lot to get away from like guitar playing and stuff is like I'm a really shitty keyboard player, and I would do the like if I come up with like a song or an idea, I'll like sequence the drums and then just put a super generic pad that doesn't do anything other than play like the basic chords, and then you kind of flesh out the song from there, so you're not relying on your orchestrating ability or your piano ability or my guitar playing ability to whatever to help you flesh out the song. And then all you're left with, I mean, really the goal with whatever style and whatever genre you're trying to write is to write a song that is interesting and compelling in its most simplest form. Like if you take away everything, the harmony, the melody, and the lyrics of the song are enough to keep people interested. And so all the other things that we add to it or in the arranging or instrumentation or whatever, they're just decoration, but whatever, you have to have something that's bulletproof or whatever that you're decorating.
I finally found something that I'm better at than everybody else, and that is being bad at my own instrument to the point where you have to write better songs.
Yes.
Well, this was like super awesome, helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Holden, for doing this.
So much.
Do you have any?
I hope some of it was useful.
Oh man, I think it was all useful.
It all was good, dude. Thanks.
Yeah. Do you have any parting words or anything, or do you want to talk about anything that you're working on?
No.
Maybe next time.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Is everybody doing okay just as people right now?
Yeah.
That's a big question, Holden.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, my parting advice is don't forget to take care of yourself as a human, or your creativity is not going to matter all that much. Be happy. Try and find a way to be happy, and that's more important than writing a great song.
Aw, thanks, Holden.
Yeah. Hang in there.